This is not a message you stumbled upon by accident. This is not another video in a long list, not another voice competing for your attention. This is a final alert from heaven, released at a precise moment in time, breaking into your life exactly when your spirit was ready to hear it. Something shifted the instant you pressed play. The atmosphere around you is not the same anymore, because heaven does not interrupt without reason. When God speaks urgently, it is never to entertain, it is to awaken. And right now, Jesus is calling your name, not as a metaphor, not as poetry, but as a living, personal summons that demands a response. There are moments in life when time feels ordinary, when days blur together and delay feels harmless. But there are also moments when eternity presses into the present, when heaven leans close and speaks with urgency. This is one of those moments. You may have sensed it already, a restlessness you couldn't explain, a quiet pressure in your spirit, a feeling that something important was approaching. That feeling was not anxiety, it was alignment. It was your spirit recognizing that a divine moment was drawing near, even before your mind could understand it. Jesus did not call names casually. When he calls, it is because a door has opened that will not remain open forever. This is why the message carries weight. This is why the words feel heavy but full of truth. My child, your moment has finally arrived. That sentence alone reveals how long heaven has been preparing you for this exact point. There were seasons when you thought nothing was happening, when prayer seemed unanswered and progress felt delayed. But heaven was not idle. You were being shaped, refined, positioned. What felt like waiting was actually preparation. What felt like silence was divine focus. But with arrival comes responsibility. With calling comes urgency. That is why the warning is clear and uncompromising. Time is running out. Not because God is cruel, but because divine windows do not stay open indefinitely. Grace invites, but it also sets boundaries. Opportunities assigned by heaven have timing attached to them, and when those moments are ignored long enough, heaven does not argue. It steps back. This is not abandonment. It is respect for free will. God will not force destiny on someone who refuses to walk into it. Archangel Michael's words carry a seriousness that should not be softened. When a messenger of divine authority speaks, it is because spiritual conditions have reached a critical point. This is not about fear, it is about clarity. Angels are assigned with purpose. They guard, guide, and assist when a person is moving in alignment with heaven's direction. But when repeated nudges are ignored, when calling is postponed again and again, those assignments can be withdrawn, not as punishment but as consequence. Heaven honors choice, even when that choice leads away from protection. This message matters because it draws a line between awareness and action. Many people sense God, feel inspired, even acknowledge calling, but stop there. They wait for a better time, a safer season, a clearer sign. But this is the sign. This is the alert. This is the moment when Jesus is not speaking to the crowd, but to you specifically. Your name is being spoken in the spirit realm, and that alone tells you how personal this is. Heaven is not vague when destiny is on the line. If your heart is racing, if your chest feels tight, if something inside you is saying, "This is for me," that is not coincidence. That is recognition. The Spirit recognizes truth before the mind can organize it. This message has found you because ignoring it would carry weight, and heaven, in mercy, warns before it withdraws. That warning itself is love. It is the last light before the road splits. It is the knock before silence. Do not misunderstand the tone. This is not condemnation. This is urgency wrapped in compassion. God does not threaten, He reveals reality. And the reality is this: your moment has arrived. Not tomorrow, not next year. Now, you are standing at the edge of a decision that will determine whether momentum is released or delayed further. The spiritual realm is attentive to your response. Angels are watching not to judge, but to see whether they are cleared to move or instructed to stand down. This is why this message exists. Not to scare you, but to awaken you. Not to overwhelm you, but to focus you. Heaven is calling you higher, calling you forward, calling you out of hesitation and into obedience. And the fact that you are hearing this now means the window is still open. But it will not remain open forever. This is the final alert from heaven. Jesus is calling your name right now. And what you do next matters more than you realize. When Jesus calls, He does not shout into the crowd hoping someone will respond. He calls with precision. He speaks directly, attenually, and personally. And right now, this call is not general. It is not symbolic. It is not meant for everyone. Jesus is calling you, your name, your life, your path. This is what makes this moment so serious. Many hear messages about God, but very few realize when God is addressing them individually, and that difference changes everything. There is a reason this message feels intimate, a reason it feels like it is following you rather than simply reaching you. Jesus does not call at random times. He calls when a person has reached a crossroads, when delay becomes dangerous, when comfort becomes costly, when neutrality becomes a decision in itself. You may have sensed that something in your life cannot continue the way it has been. Old patterns feel heavy. Distractions no longer satisfy. What once worked no longer brings peace. That is often the sign that Jesus is calling you out of where you are into where you were meant to be. Throughout history, Jesus has always called people by name at defining moments, not when their lives were perfect, but when they were positioned for change. He called fishermen when they were busy, not when they were searching. He called people who were ordinary, overlooked, uncertain, but willing. The call was never about their qualifications. It was about their response. And today, that same voice is reaching for you, not because you are ready, but because the time is right. This is why the call feels urgent. Heaven does not wait for perfect conditions. It moves when alignment is possible. You may feel unprepared. You may feel hesitant. You may even feel afraid of what saying yes could cost you. But the danger is not in moving forward. The danger is in staying where you are when Jesus has already said, "Follow me." Delay does not pause destiny. It pressures it. And pressure always demands a response. Some people ignore the call because it disrupts comfort. Others ignore it because they fear change. And some ignore it because they assume God will call again later. But the truth is, every call has timing attached to it. When Jesus calls, He is inviting you into a moment that heaven has already prepared. Ignoring that moment does not cancel God's plan, but it can remove you from the center of it. And that is why this message carries weight. You may be wondering, how do I know this call is truly for me? The answer is not found in logic alone. It is found in recognition. Your spirit recognizes truth when it hears it. That inner stirring you feel, the mix of conviction, urgency, and clarity, is not emotion. It is confirmation. Jesus did not call through confusion. He calls through clarity that pierces the heart. If something in you is saying, "This is my moment," then that is not imagination. That is alignment. This is also why resistance often shows up at the same time as calling. Doubt, distraction, and fear increase when destiny approaches. The enemy does not fight what is insignificant. He fights moments that matter. So if you feel an unusual pressure to ignore this message, scroll away, or tell yourself it is not for you, recognize that for what it is. That pressure is not protecting you. It is trying to delay you. Jesus is not asking you to have everything figured out. He is asking you to trust His voice enough to respond. The calling is not about instant perfection. It is about immediate obedience. One step in the right direction can unlock movement in the spiritual realm that years of hesitation never could. Heaven responds to movement. Angels move when faith moves. And faith begins with a yes. This is why engagement matters in moments like this. Not because of algorithms or numbers, but because response reinforces alignment. When you interact with a message that speaks to your spirit, you are acknowledging the call rather than dismissing it. So if this message resonates with you, if you feel that Jesus is calling your name right now, take a moment to respond. Like this video as a sign that you receive this word. Share it with someone who may also be standing at a crossroads. And subscribe to this channel, not out of habit, but as a declaration that you are choosing to stay connected to messages that sharpen your discernment and awaken your spirit. And I invite you to do one more thing. Write in the comments a simple declaration that marks your awareness. Something like, "I hear the call," or "I choose to respond." This is not for the public, it is for you. Spoken words carry power. Declared words create alignment. Heaven hears what you speak, even when you whisper it. Do not underestimate this moment. Jesus is not calling you to overwhelm you. He is calling you to elevate you. He is calling you because your life carries purpose that cannot remain dormant much longer. And the longer you delay, the heavier the cost becomes, not because God withdraws love, but because time does not pause for hesitation. This call is not meant to scare you. It is meant to awaken you. And the fact that you are still listening means the call is still active. The question now is not whether Jesus is speaking. The question is whether you are ready to respond. There is a reason heaven is warning you before time runs out, and it is far deeper than urgency alone. Heaven does not rush without mercy, and it does not warn without love. What you are hearing now is not panic from God. It is precision. This warning exists because a spiritual threshold has been reached, one where delay begins to carry consequences that cannot be easily reversed. You are not being pressured. You are being protected. You are being alerted before a door quietly begins to close. In the spiritual realm, time does not move the way it does on earth. Moments are measured not by clocks but by readiness and response. When heaven says time is running out, it does not mean your life is ending. It means the appointed season is approaching expiration. There are assignments that come with windows, callings that come with timing, alignments that only exist for a season. And when those windows pass, the opportunity does not always return in the same form. This is why heaven warns before it withdraws access. Many people misunderstand divine warnings. They assume warning equals punishment, but that is not how God operates. Warning is mercy speaking loudly. It is love raising its voice. It is heaven saying, "Pay attention now so you don't regret silence later." The fact that you are hearing this message means grace is still active. You are being given awareness before loss. That alone should tell you how deeply you are valued. Time runs out not because God becomes impatient, but because humans delay. Repeated hesitation creates spiritual stagnation. Each ignored nudge dulls sensitivity. Each postponed response weakens momentum. Eventually, what once felt urgent begins to feel distant, not because God moved away, but because attention drifted elsewhere. This is how people slowly miss moments they were once praying for, not through rebellion but through delay. You may have told yourself that you are waiting for confirmation, waiting for peace, waiting for clarity. But clarity has a rhyme. Peace comes after obedience, not before it. And confirmation follows movement, not hesitation. Heaven is warning you now because the next phase of your life requires action, not contemplation. This moment is not about understanding everything. It is about responding to what you already know. There is mercy even in the phrase "time is running out." Mercy because you are being told. Mercy because you are being given the chance to choose differently. Mercy because heaven is still engaging you instead of going silent. Silence is far more dangerous than warning. Silence means the window has already closed. Warning means it is still open, but narrowing. This is also why the message carries emotional weight. Truth often does. Your spirit knows this is serious, even if your mind wants to rationalize it away. The discomfort you feel is not fear, it is conviction. Conviction is not meant to crush you, it is meant to correct your direction. Heaven is not disappointed in you. Heaven is invested in you. And investment always comes with expectation. There are angels assigned to movement, not to delay. They move when faith moves. They assist when obedience begins. But when warning after warning is ignored, assignments can shift. Protection can lessen. Not because God stops caring, but because God honors choice. This is why the warning matters. He is not threatening you with abandonment. He is inviting you back into alignment while alignment is still possible. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you felt prompted to act and chose comfort instead? How many moments did you sense God nudging you forward, only to tell yourself later? Heaven keeps record of response, not to accuse, but to determine readiness. And right now, readiness is being evaluated, not by perfection, but by willingness. This warning is proof that you are not forgotten. Forgotten people are not warned. Overlooked people are not alerted. You are being spoken to because your response still matters. The fact that time is running out means time has not yet run out. That is the hope hidden inside this message. That is the mercy beating beneath the urgency. Do not let the weight of this message push you into fear. Let it pull you into focus. This is a moment of decision, not despair. Heaven is leaning close, giving you one more chance to align before consequences become automatic. And what comes next, what happens after this decision, will shape far more than you realize. Hold on, because what is about to be revealed will change how you see everything that follows. As this warning echoes in your spirit, hear this clearly. When you act in obedience, heaven multiplies the impact. When you sow into this mission through super thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are not supporting a channel. You are placing oil into God's lamp so His light reaches souls standing where you once stood. The Lord is saying to you right now, as you release, I release. As you sow, I open the heavens over you. I feel led to tell you this directly. Your obedience in giving becomes a river that carries this message to someone who desperately needs it. This is not a donation. This is a prophetic response to a divine alert. Do it now, while the moment is alive. The PayPal link is in the description, and the QR code is appearing on the screen. Act as the Spirit leads. I speak blessing over every seed sown, and I command increase, protection, and clarity to rest upon you now. Type "I hear" and "I respond" in the comments if this message resonates with you. Blessing code 418 is now activated. There are moments in the spiritual realm when a message is too serious to be delivered quietly. Moments when heaven does not whisper but sends a messenger of authority. This is one of those moments. That is why Archangel Michael steps forward in this message. Not as symbolism, not as tradition, but as a sign that what is unfolding involves spiritual warfare, divine order, and the enforcement of heaven's will. When Michael speaks, it is because something must be protected, corrected, or decided. Archangel Michael is not sent for ordinary matters. He appears when destinies are contested, when delays threaten divine assignments, and when spiritual resistance intensifies around a person's calling. His presence alone signals that what is at stake is significant. This is not about minor adjustments or small choices. This is about alignment with heaven's timeline. It is about whether you step into what has been prepared or allow it to pass by unopened. When Michael speaks the words, "My child, your moment has finally arrived," he is not announcing possibility. He is declaring readiness. Heaven does not announce arrival until preparation has already taken place. You did not wander into this moment. You were guided here through seasons of pressure, confusion, waiting, and refinement. What felt like setbacks were actually shaping you for what is now possible. Michael's declaration confirms that preparation is complete. What remains is response. But authority always carries accountability. That is why the message does not stop with celebration. It continues with warning. Authority does not soften truth. It clarifies it. Michael's role is not only to protect, but to enforce divine order. And divine order includes timing. When timing is ignored, order is disrupted. When order is disrupted, protection can shift. This is not said to frighten you, but to ground you in reality. Heaven operates with precision, not assumption. There is a reason Michael's voice carries firmness. He is not emotional. He is not reactive. He speaks with the weight of heaven's decree. When he warns that time is running out, it is because the spiritual environment around you is changing. Resistance increases when breakthrough approaches. Opposition intensifies when movement is imminent. This is why Michael is present, to confront what stands between you and obedience. You may have felt this tension already, an invisible pushback whenever you try to move forward. Distractions increasing when clarity appears. Weariness showing up right when resolve begins to form. These are not coincidences. They are indicators of spiritual activity. Michael's involvement confirms that what you are facing is not merely psychological or circumstantial. It is spiritual. And spiritual matters require decisive action, not endless analysis. Michael does not come to negotiate. He comes to draw lines. His message draws a clear boundary between delay and decision. Heaven has done its part. Preparation has been completed. Warnings have been issued. A next movement must come from you. This is why the message feels firm. It is not because heaven is angry. It is because heaven is ready. There is also comfort hidden inside Michael's presence. He does not appear to abandon. He appears to protect. His warning exists so that protection does not have to be withdrawn. His firmness exists so that alignment can be restored. Heaven prefers correction over consequence. That is why you are being told now, before silence replaces warning. Understand this clearly. When angels step back, it is not because they desire distance. It is because divine order has been ignored too long. Angels are ministers of God's will, not substitutes for human obedience. They assist movement. They do not replace it. Michael's warning is not announcing that angels have already stepped away. It is alerting you before that happens. This message also reveals how closely heaven hath been watching you. You are not invisible. Your decisions are not insignificant. Your delays have been noted, not with condemnation, but with concern. Michael's involvement confirms that your life intersects with heaven's agenda in a meaningful way. If it didn't, there would be no warning, only quiet drift. But you are being addressed directly because your response still carries weight. Do not mistake firmness for rejection. Firmness is often proof of investment. Heaven does not correct what it has abandoned. It corrects what it intends to use. Michael's warning is not a threat. It is an invitation to realign before resistance hardens into loss. It is a call to seriousness, not fear. This is the moment to see your life clearly. Not through emotion, not through excuses, but through truth. Heaven has spoken. Authority has been dispatched. The message has been delivered. What happens next depends on whether you treat this as information or as instruction. Michael has stepped forward because the next move cannot be postponed much longer. Destiny is not chasing you anymore. It is waiting, and waiting has limits. When heaven declares, "My child, your moment has finally arrived," it is not a sudden decision. It is the conclusion of a long, intentional process that began long before you were aware of it. This moment did not appear overnight. It was formed through years of unseen preparation, quiet endurance, and inner shaping that often felt confusing while you were in it. Arrival does not mean sudden success. It means readiness had been reached. Heaven does not announce arrival until the foundation can sustain what is coming next. There were seasons when you wondered if anything was happening at all. Times when prayers seemed unanswered and effort felt unnoticed. You may have questioned your purpose, doubted your direction, or even assumed you had missed something important. But those seasons were not wasted. They were essential. Delay was not denial. It was development. Every closed door, every pause, every detour was refining your discernment, strengthening your resilience, and teaching you dependence rather than control. Arrival means you are now capable of carrying what once would have overwhelmed you. There were blessings you prayed for in the past that would have crushed you back then. There were responsibilities you wanted early that would have broken you without the maturity you now carry. Heaven protects by timing. What you interpreted as withholding was actually protection. And now, protection has shifted into permission. This moment has weight because it marks a transition. You are crossing from preparation into participation, from waiting into movement, from potential into responsibility. And that transition requires courage. Rival moments are not always comfortable because they demand a response. Comfort thrives in preparation. Calling begins when comfort ends. You may still feel unsure. That does not disqualify you. Most people feel uncertain at the edge of destiny. Confidence often comes after obedience, not before it. What matters now is not how ready you feel, but whether you are willing to move when heaven says move. Arrival does not mean everything will suddenly make sense. It means you are now accountable for what you have been prepared to do. This is why hesitation feels heavier now than it used to. Before, delay felt neutral. Now it feels costly. That is because the season has changed. What was once acceptable waiting has become resistance. And resistance does not always look like refusal. Sometimes it looks like overthinking. Sometimes it looks like distraction. Sometimes it looks like telling yourself you need more time. But heaven measures readiness by response, not by intention. There is also a sense of exposure that comes with arrival. You may feel seen in ways you did not before. Oh, wait. That feeling is not judgment. It is recognition. Heaven recognizes you as someone capable of carrying more. That recognition brings responsibility, but it also brings support. If you stay aligned, Rival moments often stir fear because they demand trust. Trust that what prepared you will also sustain you. Trust that obedience will unlock provision. Trust that you are not stepping alone. Fear tries to convince you that staying where you are is safer. But stagnation is never safe when movement has been commanded. Safety is found in alignment, not comfort. You were not prepared in vain. Every skill, every lesson, every scar has purpose now. Even the pain that felt unnecessary will make sense as you move forward. Preparation always reveals its meaning in motion. Standing still hides it. Moving forward reveals it. This is also why ignoring this moment would be so costly, because arrival moments do not repeat easily. Heaven does not keep announcing the same transition indefinitely. If the call is ignored long enough, the season shifts, and what was once an invitation becomes a memory. That is not meant to scare you. It is meant to sober you. Destiny is generous, but it is not careless. You are not being rushed into chaos. You are being released into order. Order that hath been waiting for you to step into it. This moment did not arrive early. It arrived on time. And you are not late. You are here. Right now. Listening. Aware. Which means response is still possible. Heaven is not asking for perfection. It is asking for movement. One step. One decision. One act of obedience. That is all it takes to shift everything. Angels move when faith moves. Provision flows when obedience begins. And clarity increases when direction is chosen. This is your arrival moment. Not because you feel strong, but because you are ready. Not because everything is clear, but because alignment hath been established. Not because fear is gone, but because courage is now required. Do not shrink back into preparation when participation is being offered. Do not retreat into comfort when calling is standing in front of you. Heaven has declared that your moment has arrived. What happens next depends on whether you step into it or step away. There is a hidden cost to ignoring heaven's call, and it is rarely paid all at once. It is paid slowly, quietly, through erosion rather than collapse. Most people imagine that missing a divine moment will feel dramatic or obvious, but it almost never does. It feels subtle, comfortable, reasonable. That is what makes it dangerous. The cost of delay is not immediate pain. It is gradual loss of sensitivity, clarity, and momentum. When heaven calls and there is no response, the first thing that fades is urgency. What once felt pressing begins to feel optional. The fire that once stirred your spirit dims into a faint warmth. You still believe, still hope, still intend to act someday, but the edge is gone. And without that edge, obedience becomes negotiable. This is how destiny begins to drift, not through rebellion, but through postponement. Ignoring heaven does not mean God leaves you. It means the intensity of divine engagement begins to lessen. Warnings become quieter. Prompts become rarer. Opportunities become harder to recognize. Not because God is withholding, but because alignment has shifted. Heaven speaks clearly when hearts are responsive. When responsiveness weakens, clarity often does too. Another cost of ignoring the call is misdirected effort. You stay busy but unfulfilled, active but unaligned. You invest energy into things that never quite satisfy because they were never meant to carry the weight of your calling. Life continues, but something feels off. A low-level frustration settles in, not dramatic enough to alarm you, but persistent enough to drain joy. That frustration is often the echo of a calling waiting to be answered. There is also the cost of egregious resistance. When obedience is delayed, opposition does not pause. It adapts. What could have been overcome through early action now requires greater effort. Doors that once opened easily become heavier. Relationships strain. Motivation wanes. None of this happens because God is punishing you. It happens because momentum has rules, and momentum favors movement, not hesitation. Ignoring heaven's call also affects discernment. The longer you delay, the harder it becomes to distinguish between fear and wisdom, comfort and peace. Excuses begin to sound logical. Delay begins to feel justified. This is not because you have become less spiritual. It is because spiritual muscles weaken when they are not used. Discernment sharpens through obedience, not contemplation alone. Perhaps the most painful cost is regret. Not dramatic regret, but quiet reflection years later, wondering what might have been. Regret that surfaces in moments of stillness. Regret that whispers when you see others walking in paths you once sensed were meant for you. That regret is not condemnation. It is grief for unrealized potential. And while grace covers regret, it does not erase the ache of missed alignment. Ignoring the call also impacts those connected to you. Destiny is rarely isolated. Your obedience often unlocks provision, clarity, or protection for others. When you delay, the ripple effects are unseen but real. Someone else waits longer. Something else remains unresolved. Heaven's timing is interconnected, and your response matters more than you know. This is why the warning is so direct. Heaven is not trying to scare you. It is trying to spare you. Spare you from slow drift. Spare you from spiritual numbness. Spare you from realizing too late that the moment you were waiting for already came and went quietly because you were distracted. Yet even here, mercy remains. Awareness itself is mercy. The fact that you can still feel conviction means sensitivity has not been lost. The fact that this message still stirs you means the door is not fully closed. But understand this clearly. Awareness without action eventually becomes accountability. Once you know, you are responsible for what you do with that knowledge. Ignoring heaven's call does not make you a bad person. It makes you an unaligned one. And unalignment always costs more than obedience. Obedience may feel risky in the moment, but it is always cheaper than regret. Delay feels safe, but it accumulates debt in the spirit. This part of the message is not meant to accuse you. It is meant to sober you, to bring clarity without shame, to help you see delay for what it is, not harmless, not neutral, but costly over time. Heaven is offering you the truth now so you can choose differently while choice is still fully yours. You are not beyond recovery. You are not disqualified. But you are being warned that the longer you ignore this call, the more you normalize a life that was never meant to satisfy you. Heaven is still speaking. Alignment is still possible. But time, once spent, cannot be reclaimed in the same way. The cost of ignoring heaven's call is real, but so is the reward of responding. And that contrast is becoming clearer with every passing moment. There is a sacred structure in the spiritual realm that many people do not fully understand, and it involves assignment. Angels are not random beings moving without purpose. They are assigned. They are dispatched with specific roles, boundaries, and instructions connected to divine will and human obedience. When heaven assigns angels to a person, it is not only for protection, it is for progression. They assist movement, reinforce alignment, and help carry out what obedience initiates. From the moment you were called, angelic assistance was connected to your assignment. Some angels were sent to guard you through seasons of vulnerability. Others were sent to open doors, bring clarity, or restrain what could have harmed you before your time. Their presence around your life has not been accidental. There were moments you were protected without realizing it, Moments you were redirected without understanding why. That was not luck. That was assignment. But angelic assignment is not unconditional in the way many assume. Angels operate under divine order, and divine order honors human will. They do not override choice. They do not force obedience. They do not carry someone into destiny against their will. They assist those who move in alignment. When alignment stops, their role changes. This is the part many people struggle to accept. Angels stepping back does not mean abandonment. It means permission has been withdrawn because movement has stalled. Angels are not offended by delay, but they are limited by it. They cannot continue to assist when a person repeatedly resists the direction they were assigned to support. Their stepping back is not punishment. It is protocol. When angels step back, life does not immediately fall apart. That is what makes this so deceptive. Things continue. You wake up. You go to work. You function. Something subtle shifts. Protection feels thinner. Clarity feels muted. Momentum slows. Doors that once opened with ease now require strain. You begin to rely more on effort and less on grace. That is often the first sign that angelic assistance has reduced. This reduction is not permanent, but it is serious. It signals that heaven is waiting on your response before re-engaging fully. Angels remain attentive but inactive, ready but restrained. They are watching for movement, not intention. Watching for obedience, not emotion. The moment alignment is restored, the assignment can resume. But until then, distance remains. This is why the warning in the message is so direct. If you ignore this, your angels will step away. The statement is not meant to frighten you, it is meant to inform you. You are being shown the spiritual mechanics at work so you can understand the weight of your decision. Heaven is not threatening withdrawal, it is explaining consequence. There is also mercy in angels stepping back. Their withdrawal prevents further damage that could occur if a person continues out of alignment with divine protection still active. Protection without obedience can lead to false confidence. Heaven would rather remove assistance than allow a person to move forward under illusion. That removal creates awareness. Awareness invites repentance. Repentance restores alignment. You may recognize seasons in your life where things felt unusually difficult, even though you were doing everything right outwardly. Those seasons are often connected to internal resistance. Not rebellion but hesitation. Not sin but delay. Angels respond to direction, not busyness. You can be active and still be unaligned. Understand this clearly. Angels do not leave because you struggle. They step back when you refuse to move. Struggle often attracts hell. Resistance restricts it. Heaven is compassionate toward weakness, but it respects choice. That is why this message matters. You are being told before assistance fully withdraws, not after. There is still time to keep angels engaged. There is still opportunity to restore momentum. The warning exists because heaven wants to prevent loss, not announce it. Angels stepping back is not inevitable. It is conditional. It depends on response. If you have felt recently like you are pushing harder but seeing less result, striving more but feeling less peace, that may be an invitation to examine alignment rather than effort. Heaven does not require exhaustion. It requires obedience. When obedience resumes, grace accelerates. When grace accelerates, angels move again. This part of the message is not meant to burden you. It is meant to empower you. You are not powerless in this process. Your response determines proximity. Your obedience determines assistance. Heaven has already shown its investment by warning you. That warning itself proves angels are still near, Do not wait until stepping back becomes stepping away. Do not normalize spiritual dryness when alignment is available. Angels are assigned to your calling, and they are watching for movement. What you choose next will determine whether they advance with you, or remain standing still. Even though the warning hath been clear and the weight of this moment undeniable, hear this with certainty. The window is narrow, but it is still open. If it were closed, you would not be hearing this message. Heaven does not speak to announce endings without offering one final opportunity for alignment. This part of the message exists to reveal mercy in motion. The urgency you feel is not meant to paralyze you. It is meant to position you. A narrow window does not mean impossibility. It means precision. It means the timing matters now more than ever. What once could be delayed without consequence now requires response. And while that may feel intense, it is also powerful because narrow windows concentrate grace. When time is short, clarity increases. Distractions lose their appeal. Excuses lose their strength. What truly matters rises to the surface. You are not being asked to fix your entire life at once. You are being asked to step into alignment. One decision, one shift, one act of obedience. That is how narrow windows are entered, not through perfection, but through willingness. Heaven does not need you flawless. Heaven needs you responsive. There is still hope because awareness is still present. The Spirit does not strive endlessly, but it does strive faithfully. This striving you feel is not pressure. It is invitation. An invitation to move before stagnation hardens into resistance. An invitation to respond while angels are still attentive and grace is still flowing. Many people miss narrow windows because they underestimate them. They assume opportunity will always look dramatic, obvious, or convenient. But divine opportunity often looks like discomfort. It looks like being asked to move before you feel ready. It looks like letting go of what is familiar to make room for what is right. That discomfort is not danger. It is transition. This window is narrow because it is specific. It is not asking for a general belief. It is calling for a specific response. Something you already know you need to do. A step you have delayed. A decision you have avoided. Heaven had been patient, but patience does not cancel timing. Timing still matters. You may feel fear rising as you consider responding. Fear often shows up at the edge of breakthrough. It does not mean you are wrong. It means you are close. Fear's job is to keep you where you are, even when where you are no longer fits who you are becoming. Do not mistake fear for wisdom. Wisdom leads to peace after obedience, not before it. The window is still open because mercy is still active. Mercy is not passive. It moves. It warns. It invites. It urges. And right now, mercy is speaking clearly to you. Not to shame you, but to save you from regret. Not to rush you into chaos, but to guide you into alignment. If you are still listening, that is not accidental. It means something in you knows this moment matters. And it does. More than you may realize right now. What you decide in this narrow window will echo into future seasons. It will determine whether momentum is restored or resistance increases. Whether angels move forward with you or remain waiting. This is not the time to negotiate with delay. Delay has already had enough influence. This is the time to respond with humility and courage. You do not need to know every outcome. You need to trust the one who is calling you forward. Take this seriously, but do not take it fearfully. Heaven is not angry with you. Heaven is reaching for you. The window is narrow, yes, but it is still open. And you are still invited. You will be glad you stayed for what is about to be revealed next, because it will clarify exactly how to respond before this moment passes. As this narrow window stands open before you, hear this as a divine instruction. When you give, you become a messenger of light for someone else standing in darkness. The Lord is saying right now, what you place in my hands, I will multiply to reach hearts you will never meet. I am speaking to you directly. This is your moment to sow into the work that carries this warning across the earth. Your super thanks, your membership, your PayPal seed becomes oil that keeps this flame burning. This is not a pause. This is a prophetic action that must be taken while the window is open. The PayPal link is in the description, and the QR code is on the screen. Move as the Spirit leads you now. I bless every giver with clarity, acceleration, and divine protection in Jesus' name. Type "I step into alignment" in the comments if you feel this window is for you. Blessing code 639 is now activated. Responding before heaven goes silent is not about panic, pressure, or rushing into confusion. It is about discernment while clarity is still available. Heaven rarely goes silent suddenly. Silence usually arrives gradually, after warnings have been ignored, nudges postponed, and moments delayed one too many times. That is why this moment matters so deeply. Heaven is still speaking to you now. Guidance is still accessible. Your action is still clear enough to follow. But that will not always remain the case. Silence from heaven does not mean God disappears or stops caring. It means communication becomes harder to perceive. What was once sharp becomes faint. What once stirred conviction becomes background noise. People often mistake that silence for peace, when in reality it is distance created by delay. That distance does not happen in a single decision. It happens through repeated hesitation. And by the time many realize what they have lost, they cannot remember when the silence began. Responding before heaven goes silent is an act of wisdom. It is choosing alignment while alignment is still within reach. A true response is not emotional agreement alone. Feeling moved, convicted, or inspired is not the same as responding. The response always includes action. It includes movement, even if that movement is small. Heaven responds to direction, not intention. Intention without action eventually fades into frustration. You may be asking yourself what response actually looks like in your situation. It does not require perfection. It does not require complete understanding. It requires obedience in the area you have been delaying. That one step you already know you need to take. A decision you have postponed because it felt uncomfortable, inconvenient, or risky. Response is rarely dramatic. It is often quiet, personal, and unseen by others, but it is unmistakable in the spiritual realm. Responding now carries a different weight than responding later. Now grace is concentrated. Now angels are attentive. Now clarity is present. Later, response may still be possible, but it often requires more effort, more correction, and more recovery. Heaven prefers cooperation over correction. That is why you are being urged to move, while cooperation is still possible. When you respond, momentum is restored. Momentum is not just practical, it is spiritual. Obedience creates movement in the unseen before anything changes in the seen. Doors begin to shift. Resistance weakens. Peace returns. Not because everything is suddenly easy, but because alignment has been reestablished. Alignment always brings flow. Silence interrupts it. There is also protection in responding early. When you move with heaven, you move under covering. When you delay, you begin to rely more on effort than grace. Responding before silence protects you from unnecessary struggle. It keeps you within the current of divine assistance rather than fighting against it alone. Heaven can redirect a moving person. It can correct steps taken in faith. But it cannot guide someone who refuses to move at all. Response communicates teachability. Teachability keeps heaven engaged. Silence often comes when teachability fades. This is why response is being emphasized so strongly now. Not because heaven is impatient, but because this moment is fragile. It can be honored, or it can be missed. Many people intend to respond soon, not realizing that soon is often the doorway to silence. Delayed obedience is still disobedience, even when it is wrapped in good intentions. If this message is stirring you, that stirring is not accidental. It is a final kindness before quiet distance sets in. Do not let this be a moment you later remember as something you almost responded to. Let it be the moment you chose alignment over hesitation. This is also why outward engagement matters here. Not because of visibility, but because response strengthens commitment. When you act, you reinforce your decision. So if this message is resonating with you, take a moment now to like this video as a sign that you are not ignoring this call. Share it with someone who may also be standing at a crossroads. And subscribe to this channel, not out of habit, but as a declaration that you are choosing to remain connected to messages that keep your spirit alert and aligned. I also invite you to write a declaration in the comments. Something simple but intentional. I respond now. I choose obedience. I will not delay. These words are not for others. They are markers for you. Spoken declarations create spiritual anchors. They remind you later that you chose alignment when it mattered most. Do not underestimate how quickly silence can replace warning if delay continues. This is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to awaken urgency without panic. Heaven is still near. Angels are still attentive. Grace is still active. But response is required to keep that engagement alive. If you feel a pull in your spirit right now, do not dismiss it. That pull is opportunity. Opportunity to move before resistance hardens. Opportunity to respond while clarity is still present. Opportunity to choose obedience over explanation. Stay with this message, because what is about to be revealed next will expose the true difference between the reward of obedience and the cost of delay. And once you understand that difference, you will never see this moment the same way again. When you say yes, something shifts immediately, even if nothing changes on the surface right away. Heaven responds faster than you realize. The moment obedience is chosen, movement begins in the unseen. Angels that were waiting receive permission to act. Resistance that felt immovable begins to weaken. Confusion that lingered starts to clear. Saying yes is not the end of struggle, but it is the end of stagnation. Many people expect obedience to feel powerful right away. They assume saying yes will come with instant confidence, overwhelming peace, or visible confirmation. But that is not how it usually works. Obedience often begins quietly, even trembling. The power of yes is not in how it feels, it is in what it activates. Heaven honors yes even when it is whispered. Angels move even when faith feels small. When you say yes, alignment is restored. Alignment is what allows grace to flow. Before alignment, you may have felt like you were pushing forward with effort, but seeing little result. After alignment, effort is no longer the source, grace is. Things begin to move with less strain. Doors that resisted begin to open. Conversations shift. Timing improves. Not because circumstances magically change, but because you are now moving with heaven instead of against it. Angels respond to obedience immediately. They are not delayed by emotion or doubt. They are dispatched by direction. The moment direction changes, assignment resumes. Protection strengthens. Guidance sharpens. Provision begins to line up in ways you could not orchestrate on your own. You may not see angels, but you will feel the difference. Life begins to carry momentum again. Peace also returns, but not the passive kind. It is not the peace of comfort. It is the peace of alignment. The kind that exists even when things are challenging. The kind that anchors you when fear tries to resurface. That peace does not come from certainty about outcomes. It comes from confidence in obedience. Knowing you are where you are supposed to be is stabilizing in ways nothing else can replace. Saying yes also exposes what was holding you back. Fear loses its power when confronted by obedience. Doubt weakens when action replaces rumination. The things that felt overwhelming while you were standing still become manageable once you start moving. Movement reveals capacity. Standing still hides it. You may still face resistance after saying yes. That does not mean you were wrong. Resistance often increases briefly when alignment is restored because opposition recognizes movement. But the difference now is that you are not facing resistance alone. Heaven is engaged again. Assistance is active. What once drained you will no longer dominate you. Yes also unlocks clarity. Direction becomes easier to discern once you commit to moving. Heaven guides step by step, not all at once. When you say yes to what you know now, more is revealed later. Many people remain confused because they are waiting for full clarity before responding. But clarity follows obedience. It does not precede it. There is also acceleration that comes with yes. Time that felt wasted begins to redeem itself. Opportunities appear that seem perfectly timed. Connections line unexpectedly. What felt delayed begins to catch up. Heaven knows how to restore momentum when obedience resumes. Lost ground can be recovered, not always in the same way, but often more effectively. Saying yes does not mean life becomes easy. It means life becomes aligned. And aligned life carries purpose even in difficulty. You stop questioning whether you are missing something. You stop wondering if you should have acted differently. Peace settles because direction has been chosen. This is why obedience is so powerful. It simplifies life and narrows focus. It removes the constant inner debate. Once yes is spoken, energy shifts from indecision to movement. You stop circling the same questions and start walking forward. Heaven is not asking you to carry the outcome. It is asking you to carry the response. Outcomes belong to God. Response belongs to you. When you say yes, you place responsibility back where it belongs. You. Heaven manages the rest. If you have been waiting for a feeling, a sign, or a guarantee, understand this. Yes itself is the sign. Movement itself is the confirmation. Heaven will meet you on the path, not before it. What happens when you say yes is not chaos. It is activation. Activation of purpose. Activation of assistance. Activation of peace that does not depend on circumstances. You were never meant to carry delay forever. You were meant to move when the moment arrived. And that moment has arrived. Saying yes does not make you fearless. It makes you obedient. And obedience is what releases everything heaven has been holding back, waiting for your response. At moments like this, heaven always places two paths before a person, even if only one feels visible at first. One path is shaped by obedience, the other by delay. Both paths continue forward in time. Both allow life to go on. But they do not lead to the same destination, and they do not shape the same future. Heaven reveals this contrast not to threaten you, but to give you clarity before choice hardens into consequence. The path of obedience does not promise a life without difficulty. It promises a life with direction. Obedience aligns you with heaven's current, and when you move with that current, effort is no longer wasted. You may still face resistance, but you face it with support. You may still encounter uncertainty, but you walk with guidance. Obedience brings a deep inner stability that does not depend on circumstances going perfectly. It brings peace that remains even when outcomes are still unfolding. One of the greatest rewards of obedience is clarity. When you choose alignment, confusion begins to lift. Decisions become simpler, not because options disappear, but because discernment sharpens. You recognize what matters and what doesn't. You stop circling the same questions over and over. Life feels purposeful again, even in seasons of challenge. That clarity alone is a reward many people spend years searching for. Obedience also keeps heaven actively involved in your life. Guidance remains accessible. Correction comes early instead of late. Redirection happens gently instead of painfully. Angels remain engaged because movement continues. Even when you make mistakes, grace adjusts your path without removing you from it. Obedience does not mean you never stumble. It means you never wander alone. There is also a quiet confidence that grows through obedience. Not arrogance, not self-reliance, but assurance. You know you are where you are supposed to be. That knowledge steadies you when fear tries to resurface. It silences the constant inner debate about whether you missed something or should have acted differently. Obedience brings rest to the soul because alignment replaces uncertainty. Delay, by contrast, carries consequences that rarely appear dramatic at first. Delay often feels reasonable. It disguises itself as caution, preparation, or waiting for a better time. But over time, delay erodes urgency. What once felt important begins to feel optional. What once stirred conviction begins to feel distant. The spirit does not become hardened overnight. It becomes dulled through repetition of postponement. One of the first consequences of delay is stagnation. Life continues, but progress feels limited. You may remain busy, productive, and outwardly successful, yet inwardly unfulfilled. Effort increases, but satisfaction decreases. This is not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing something misaligned. A calling left unanswered always leaves a quiet ache. Delay also affects spiritual sensitivity. The longer obedience is postponed, the harder it becomes to distinguish between wisdom and fear, peace and comfort. Excuses begin to sound logical. Hesitation begins to feel justified. Over time, discernment weakens, not because God stops speaking, but because responsiveness declines. Heaven speaks most clearly to those who are willing to move. Another consequence of delay is altered timing. Some opportunities are delayed but return later with greater difficulty. Others return in a different form, requiring more effort, more recovery, and more correction. And some opportunities do not return at all in the same way. Heaven does not punish delay, but it does honor order. Timing is part of obedience, not separate from it. Perhaps the most painful consequence of delay is regret. Not loud regret, but quiet reflection. Moments when you wonder what might have been if you had moved when prompted. Moments when you see others walking in peace, clarity, or purpose you once sensed was meant for you. That comparison does not come to shame you. It comes because destiny moves forward even when individuals hesitate. Obedience carries risk, but delay carries certainty. The certainty of sameness. The certainty of muted guidance. The certainty of spiritual dryness disguised as normal life. Obedience risks change. Delay guarantees stagnation. And stagnation, when calling demands movement, eventually becomes unbearable. Heaven reveals these two paths because choice is still yours. You are not trapped. You are not condemned. You are deciding. But decision becomes heavier the longer it is postponed. That is why this message has carried such urgency. Urgency is mercy. It prevents compounding loss. It interrupts drift before drift becomes distance. Understand this clearly. Heaven celebrates obedience even when it is imperfect. It does not require flawless execution. It requires willingness. Delay, however, compounds. Each postponed response makes the next response harder. Momentum weakens. Sensitivity dull. What once required courage eventually requires recovery. This moment stands as a dividing line, not between good and bad people, but between movement and stagnation, between engagement and distance, between clarity and confusion. Both paths continue forward, but only one leads into the fullness of what has been prepared for you. Heaven has made the contrast clear so you can choose with understanding. Obedience leads to a life marked by direction, support, and peace that holds steady even in difficulty. Delay leads to drift, quieter heaven, and the slow ache of unrealized purpose. Now that you see the difference, the responsibility shifts to you. What you choose next will shape not only what happens, but how you experience everything that follows. This is the final moment of this message, but it is not the end of what heaven is doing in your life. It is the point of convergence, the place where everything you have heard comes together and waits for your response. Heaven has spoken with urgency, not to overwhelm you, but to bring you into clarity. Warnings have been given, not to condemn you, but to protect you. And now, assurance is being released, because fear is never the conclusion of a divine message. Hope is. Heaven wants you to know this clearly. You are not beyond grace. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. The very fact that you are here, listening to the final words of this message, means mercy is not withdrawn. Angels have not disappeared. Heaven has not gone silent. This is not a message of abandonment. It is a message of invitation, one final, loving, serious invitation to step fully into alignment. God's tone toward you is firm, but it is also deeply compassionate. He does not speak urgently because he is angry. He speaks urgently because he sees what is ahead and knows what you could lose by delay and what you could gain by obedience. Heaven always warns before it withdraws, and it always invites before it corrects. This is that invitation. Let assurance settle in your spirit now. You are not expected to be perfect. You are expected to be willing. God does not require flawless faith. He responds to honest obedience. Even a trembling yes opens doors that a confident delay never will. The power has never been in your strength. It has always been in your response. If fear tries to rise at this point, recognize it for what it is, the last attempt of resistance to keep you from moving forward. Fear is loud at endings because it knows momentum is about to begin. But fear does not have authority over your future. Obedience does. And obedience is still available to you now. You are stepping out of confusion and into clarity, out of hesitation and into direction, out of delay and into divine timing. This is not the end of the warning, it is the beginning of peace. Peace that comes from knowing you are aligned. Peace that comes from choosing movement over stagnation. Peace that remains even when the road ahead is still unfolding. Heaven is watching your response, not with judgment, but with anticipation. Angels are attentive. Grace is active. Assistance is ready. What happens next is not about pressure. It is about partnership. God does his part. You do yours. And together, movement begins. Do not carry the weight of this message as fear. Carry it as focus. Let it sharpen your decisions. Let it simplify your priorities. Let it remind you that your life has purpose, direction, and divine attention. You are not drifting, you are being called forward. And as this message closes, know this: heaven does not call people it does not intend to walk with. You are not being sent ahead alone. The moment you choose obedience, heaven moves with you. Protection strengthens. Guidance increases. Be settled. This is the assurance you are meant to carry forward. As this message comes to a close, hear this as a final divine instruction. When you give, you are answering heaven's call to carry this word beyond yourself. The Lord is saying to you right now, what you release in obedience, I will multiply into a harvest of souls. I am speaking to you personally. This is not about supporting a channel. This is about fueling a mission that awakens hearts before time runs out. Your super thanks, your membership, your PayPal seed becomes a prophetic act that keeps this message moving where God intends it to go. Do not delay this moment. Obedience now carries eternal weight. The PayPal link is in the description, and the QR code is on the screen. Act with faith and authority. I bless every giver with open heavens, divine acceleration, and peace that confirms obedience. Type "I choose obedience" now in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 912 is now activated. This message ends here, but your moment does not. Heaven has spoken. Assurance has been given. The path is clear. Move forward in peace, courage, and confidence, knowing that God is with you. Angels are attentive, and your obedience will not be in vain.